I'm not familiar with the latest thing going on mechanical licensing, so I'm glad we have Mr. Dae Bogan here, who's going to explain it to us. He's the head of third-party partnerships for the Mechanical Licensing Collective. That's an organization known as the MLC, and he leads the MLC strategy for engaging third-party entities to support initiatives in rights administration, data management, operations, and membership services. So there's a lot going on there. and Dave's going to explain it all to us. Just pretend like we don't know what the heck is going on in the mechanical licensing world, and start from the beginning, and we'll try to catch on. But I'm sure it's going to be a help to us to know about this stuff. So I'm glad he's here. And
yeah,
so,
absolutely.
I'll turn it over to you.
Right. Sorry about that. All right. Thank you for having me. First of all, at the MLC, we are a quasi-government nonprofit organization based in Nashville. That's the headquarters. Our team, though, is distributed across the U.S. and some team in Europe. We do like to do these very regional and localized meetups like this. So appreciate the invitation to participate in the Dallas Songwriters Association. So before I get started, I just want to sort of gauge the knowledge here in regards to the MLC. Raise your hand or use the reaction icon to indicate if you're aware of the Music Modernization Act. If you've heard of the MMA, the Music Modernization Act. Okay. So a few of you have heard of the MMA. So before I even talk about the MLC, we have to first talk about the MMA, the Music Modernization Act. And what that is a piece of legislation that was passed in 2018. So it's called the Music Modernization Act of 2018. And it basically updated the United States Copyright Act in a number of ways. So the MMA, or Music Modernization Act, long term, has three titles to it. And they have three titles because there were previously three separate bills that were all being sort of pushed through or lobbied through Congress by different sectors of the music industry. The recording industry side was pushing for a bill that we call the Classics Act, where the songwriter and publisher side, so PROs, were pushing for an update to the mechanical licensing, and artists organizations like Recording Academy were pushing for more rights for producers and engineers. So all of these three different bills that were being sort of lobbied by different organizations within the music industry, from the National Music Publishers Association, NMPA, to the Recording Industry Association of America, RAA, to our PROs and songwriter groups, they were all sort of simultaneously moving ahead, trying to push these bills. So in 2017, they sort of all came together to create this one bill called the Music Modernization Act, with each of those previous independent bills being a separate title, Title 1, 2, and 3. So now it's this bigger multi-part piece of legislation called Music Modernization Act, which ultimately, after vigorous negotiations and battles and give and takes, was passed and signed into law in October 2018. So let me talk about the three titles of the Music Modernization Act. What are they? So Title 1 is also called the Music Modernization. It's actually called the Musical Works Modernization Act. And what that is a update to the way that songs or musical works are licensed in the United States to digital music services. Prior to this update, if I was a Spotify or a company like a Spotify or Apple, any kind of digital streaming service, and I wanted to use, or if a recording was uploaded to one of these services, they didn't have to go directly to the songwriter or the composer to get a direct license, which is the mechanical license for that use. Instead, they operated under what was called a compulsory mechanical license. Compulsory mechanical license is a part of the Copyright Act. It was sometimes called Section 115, because that's a section of the Copyright Act, which basically gives anyone permission to reproduce and distribute a musical work as long as they account to the copyright owner and send a notice to the copyright owner of that use. And that notice was called Notice of Intention, so NOI for short. And that was a process for, pretty much forever since, copyright existed and in the compulsory format. And that created all of these or it helped to grow the black box, right? So if I cannot find a songwriter for whom I owe mechanical royalties because I'm using that song on my service, I could then hold on to those royalties until such time as that person is found, or until the statute of limitations arises for that, for those royalties. So that created this ballooning what we call black box. These are unclaimed royalties associated with the use of musical works that are due to songwriters and copyright owners who were unknown to the digital music service. And that was made possible by the then current way in which we license music, which was the compulsory mechanical license. So that led to this sort of ballooning situation where by 2018, you have Spotify, you have SoundCloud, you have Pandora, Amazon Music, Apple, iTunes, all of the different services sort of accruing millions of dollars, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in royalties, primarily owed to independent songwriters and publishers who were not as well tied into the ecosystem and the way that stuff was kind of operating at the time. So eventually the industry said, we've had enough. There were lawsuits from publishers and individual songwriters against services. There were services trying to create settlements and types of direct deals with songwriter groups and artist groups. So all of this stuff was happening. It was sort of the wild, wild west until 2018, when the Music Modernization Act said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take all of the rights to license musical works in the United States and put it under one roof, instead of a digital service having to go out and find every individual copyright owner, which was the law, or if they could not find them in the public database of the Copyright Office, by you registering your songs with the Copyright Office, they could send your notice to the Copyright Office. So the Copyright Office was receiving literally thousands of notices on behalf of unknown songwriters and copyright owners. So the Music Modernization Act established this new entity, it established the concept for this entity called the Mechanical Licensing Collective. And the Mechanical Licensing Collective would serve two purposes. One is to administer this new blanket mechanical license that was created by the Music Modernization Act. So for a digital service, instead of having to go out and get a license for each of you on the screen as songwriters or composers, I can simply use the blanket license that covers all of your songs, right? And the blanket license is more of a abstract concept than it is a physical document. So when people say, oh, they're operating under the blanket license is not an actual physical document. It is a licensing concept within the United States that is automatically in effect by virtue of following the rules of the Section 115 provision, which is to notify the public that the service is operating under this abstract license, and to pay the royalties, to calculate and pay the royalties to the MLC, or directly to the rights holders. So our job is to administer the blanket license, which is to send notices to services that may need to operate under the license or default on the license, to receive notices and publish those notices publicly, which we do on our website, to generate and send out invoices to digital services to receive the royalties for the use of the music, and then also on the flip side, to receive from services usage reports. We receive all the usage for all DSPs that operate in the United States, all in one central place, right? So there's over 30 different types of companies that are operating under the blanket license. They report to us every month, every stream, every download that happens on those platforms. We then take that information and calculate the royalties that are due for that usage on behalf of the copyright owners and submit an invoice back to the DSP. And then they have to pay us the royalties for that. And then we pay out those royalties to the songwriters and copyright owners. As a nonprofit quasi-government organization, we're different than like a PRO, like an ASCAP or BMI, because those are standalone organizations and have to charge an administration fee to cover their overhead. We do not have an administration fee. 100% of the royalties that are earned on digital services for songwriters and publishers are actually paid out by us. We do not have a commission. There's no overhead administration fee. There's no fee to become a member. Every songwriter in the world is eligible to become a member of MLC as long as you control the copyright in at least one of your songs. Part of my role is third partnerships. I do partnerships globally. I'm actually in Latin America now, doing grassroots outreach in Latin America and regional. I spent some time in other countries in Southeast Asia and Australia and Europe. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world. You can be paid directly from the MLC for the streams of your music, for the download of your music in the United States with no commission off the top, no admin fee or anything like that. I have a presentation I'm going to jump into, but I wanted to start with kind of that backdrop about the MLC. So again, before the MLC existed, first there was the law, the MMA, the Music Modernization Act. I do recommend that you read it because some of you I can see from your rooms are probably not only songwriters, but probably also engineers or producers, and they have different titles within the MMA. So the MMA has 3 titles. Title 1 is for songwriters and publishers and composers. Title 2 is called the Classics Act, which is for think about music that are classic music from the 70s and before. So what it did was songs or recordings that were recorded and distributed prior to 1972 did not earn digital royalties for performance royalties. Or digital performance royalties, for example, Sound Exchange on services like Pandora. For Pandora, you can go to like the golden 50s channel, or you can listen to the 60s channel. You can listen to the sometimes when I'm writing lectures, I teach at UCLA as well. Sometimes when I'm writing lectures, I just put on Ella Fitzgerald channel, and then everything in there is pretty much from the 20s to the 40s to this maybe a little bit of 60s. None of that music received royalties prior to the MMA. For the recording artists, for their estates, for their children, for their grandchildren, they didn't receive any royalties because recordings that were recorded before February 15th, 1972 were grandfathered into not receiving royalties when the Copyright Act was updated in 72 and went into effect in 1976, which created a federal copyright for sound recordings, right? There was no federal copyright for sound recordings before 1972. The federal copyright for sound recordings came in after 72. So everything that was recorded before 72 did not receive copyright protection. So when the digital royalties for digital performance royalties came about with the creation of Sound Exchange, those 72 recordings did not receive Sound Exchange royalties. So if you worked on a 72 recording as a producer or as an engineer, as a background vocalist, as a session musician, any of that, no royalties, right? So the Classics Act changed that. And that went into effect January 1st, 2021. Just like the Music Modernization Act Title I changed how songwriters and publishers are paid for your digital mechanical. So that's download, that's streaming, that's interactive. And the third title is for those of you who are producers and engineers. It's literally called the AMP Act, A-M-P, AMP Act, for Allocation for Music Producers Act. And it's the first time in our music rights history that an allocation of royalties was codified in law for music producers and engineers. So whether you have an agent or not, or whether you're with the union or not, whether you have a producer deal with the record label or not, doesn't matter. It's the law of the land that music producers and engineers have a statutory right to digital royalties for sound recordings that they worked on. which I've always advised my producers and engineers that needs to be in your contract when you now work on recordings. It's basically call it out to the artist. They have to sign what's called a letter of direction, but that should be a part of the process to work on projects. And if you're an artist on the call, you should be aware that producers and engineers are entitled to these things. So it's not really a negotiating fact, because this is an entitlement, as it used to be a negotiation, but now it's a legal entitlement. And the difference is they're going to get it whether you like it or not, but you do have an administrative responsibility to complete a document and hand it to Sound Exchange. These royalties are allocated for producers and engineers. It doesn't take away from royalties from artists. That's the other thing to understand. It's because it's already a slice that's specific to producers and engineers. So it's not like you're negotiating to give up anything, because it's already allocated to them. But it does require artists to sign a document and submit it to the producer, so they can hand it over to Sound Exchange and say, here's the recording that I produced, or that I mastered or mixed. And as a result of being the mixing engineer, mastering engineer, or producer, I am going to claim these royalties that are already allocated to me. It's not an ask for royalties. It's not a negotiation of an artist's share of royalties. It's an entitlement, and you have to process the document. Okay, so those are the three pieces of MMA. The challenge with the MMA is that it was passed. It took many years to lobby and negotiate this. There was a lot of back kind of behind the scenes stuff going on. I was in DC in 2019, speaking at Library of Congress on behalf of how this new organization that would exist, MLC, before I was even hired at MLC, because no one was hired because it didn't exist. I was speaking on how it would go about doing outreach, and now here I am as head of outreach. But then the pandemic happened, and no one was talking about music rights. We were talking about how we're going to eat, right? How we're going to do live shows, how we're going to make money. So no one was talking about music rights. But what happened during the pandemic? Well, we had to create the Music Modernization Act as a completely virtual team who never met. And 2020 is when the law stated that the MLC had to go into effect January 1st, 2021. Well, obviously 2020 came and it shook up the world. But that's when they began hiring for the MLC. So we came in, the various staff, the leadership was hired first. Our CEO is Chris Arum, who was previously at Warner. And we had to build this global organization from the ground up without ever seeing each other or meeting physically in a physical space. But we still had the responsibility to start processing billions of lines of royalties and paying out hundreds, tens of millions of royalties, starting in 2021. And so before I jump over, does that give you a decent background on the Music Modernization Act, right? This is something that if you wear a hat as a songwriter, if you wear a hat as a publisher, if you wear a hat as an artist, if you wear a hat as a producer, as an engineer, you should know which of these titles affect you. And more importantly, not just more importantly, but equally as important, is to understand how to reference these things in your contracts when you're doing your work, because I do a lot of contracting on behalf of creators. Hey, look, I'm entitled to these royalties. I'm not negotiating about it. I'm saying you need to give me this letter of direction, because under Title II of the Music Modernization Act, I'm entitled to blank percentage, right? So that's how it needs to move forward. And then for you who've worked on projects in the past, going back, right? We're going to talk about historical royalties in a moment, but we pay out royalties going back to 2007. So it's not just January 1st, 2021, where we've been paying out royalties. We pay royalties going back to the very first digital service, which was Slacker Radio in 2007. And then Spotify came out shortly after, right? So if you worked on works back then, you may be owed royalties. And we do have the data about those things. The titles of the songs, how many streams they even earned in February of 2009. We have that information because it took that first year of operations. We were simply digesting all of the data from all the DSPs, going back to their origination, to sort of clean up and understand all of the works, musical works, all of the sound recordings, and not just for US artists, like I said, globally. So let me jump into who we are. So again, my name is Dae. I'm the head of third-party partnerships. I'm also a lecturer at UCLA Herb Alpert School of Music, where I teach music industry entrepreneurship, specifically technology and entrepreneurship, how to build tech startups in the music industry. I also do master classes on music publishing and copyright administration at USC and CSUN, all in Los Angeles. I'm currently on a 2-year assignment in Latin America, developing and overseeing our Latin America outreach, in addition to still doing the work in North America. And I am accessible via email, via social media, direct questions. I can forward you to the right people. So one thing I'm really excited about the MLC is, prior to the MLC, I built software to help independent songwriters and publishers manage their catalog, and independent songwriters to become their own publisher by using economical tools to administer your own rights, to register works to all the societies. And when I did that, I had a tough time dealing with sort of writer services and member services with a lot of societies. Have you ever tried to call one of your PROs and get somebody on the phone about a statement or about something, right? How long does that take? We have a amazing record of picking up the call within 20 seconds. We're open. We used to be open 7 days a week. Now we're open 5 days a week, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. We have chat online. So even if you don't want to make a call, you can chat with us online on your phone. You can email us. You can call someone, and you get a full service person. So it's not like someone who doesn't know anything from somewhere. You're going to get a full service person who can help with any of your needs, from onboarding to registering songs to questions about your royalties and your statements, everything.
You're a music creator and want to start making money off your music. So you sign up for a music distribution service that uploads your songs to the top platforms. Now, your songs are streamed by thousands of listeners every month across the United States. But you might not know that with every stream, you earn separate royalties as an artist and a songwriter. Although you get paid artist royalties by your distributor, many distributors do not collect and pay songwriter royalties. Your songwriter royalties are paid to music rights organizations. Performance royalties are paid to performing rights organizations. In the US, some of those are ASCAP, BMI, GMR, and CSAC. And digital mechanical royalties are paid to the Mechanical Licensing Collective, or the MLC. If you want to collect all of your US mechanical streaming money from your song, you should join the MLC. It's free to join and pays out 100% of the mechanical royalties that it collects on your behalf. And you will receive royalty payments monthly. So what are you waiting for? Join the MLC today and get paid.
All right, so that's our 60-second explainer video. You can reach this video by going to our YouTube channel, which is themlc.com, THEMLC.com. So I'm gonna hop into a presentation. I might skip a few slides because I've already covered some of it in my opening spiel, but I'm gonna go over this anyway. So quick recap. The MLC, we sit in the middle of digital music providers like your Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, Google, YouTube Music, and so forth. They pay us, and then we pay rights holders. And that can be songwriters, composers, lyricists, music publishers, administrators, and so forth. So that's where we sit in the middle. The MLC is the exclusive administrator of the new blanket digital mechanical license. So the Music Modernization Act established the creation of the blanket digital mechanical license. Prior to that, it was the compulsory mechanical license that required one-to-one sort of licensing for every individual musical work. Now, the blanket license covers all musical works globally, whether you know it exists or not, whether you know the license exists or not, if the song streams or is downloaded in the United States. So one of our challenges as an organization is that we have to go out there into the world, including our own backyard in the United States, and say, hey, we exist, we're licensing your music, we're collecting royalties for your music, whether you know we exist or not, right? So that's the situation, right? Is that the law created it, and this whole process now exists, but the awareness behind the process was sort of distracted, obviously, by the pandemic or challenged by the pandemic. And again, the MLC is the only organization that can collect and distribute the royalties paid pursuant to this new blanket license. So this is very important to know, because some of you may be self-published. And if you're self-published, you may be a member of ASCAP or BMI or CSEC. ASCAP, BMI, and CSEC are PROs, performing rights organizations. So they collect performing rights or performance royalties. We are a mechanical licensing collective, so we collect mechanical royalties. So we don't collect the same type of royalty. You need both an ASCAP or BMI plus the MLC to fully collect your songwriter royalties, right? So songwriter royalties are your performance and your mechanical from digital services, and you need both organizations to be able to collect that. This may be redundant for some of you, but the musical works and sound recordings have different parties associated with them, and different types of rights. So a musical work or song is created by songwriters, composers, and lyricists, and is often administered by music publishers. Whereas a sound recording is created by recording artists and producers, and often distributed by record companies. For those of you who are completely DIY, who write your own songs, who record it, who distribute it, guess what? You are all of these things, right? So you are the songwriter, you're the composer, you're the distributor. So, for example, the song Yesterday was written by John Lennon and Paul McCartney, but the song Yesterday has been performed and recorded by the Beatles, as well as Elvis Presley, Aretha Franklin, Frank Sinatra, so many other artists. Every version is a new set of parties associated with that sound recording. So key publishing rights for the owners of musical works. So the owners of musical works have the right to reproduce and the right to distribute musical works. So the right to reproduce is to copy it into a physical or digital means. So it may be a digital audio file, it may be a physical CD or vinyl, right? That's reproduction. And then to distribute those digital or physical audio files. So the distribution and reproduction are two different rights, but when they come together, that right is licensed through the tool called a mechanical license. So the right to reproduce and the right to distribute is granted to some party like Spotify through the mechanical license being the medium through which those rights are granted. And then there's a right to publicly perform, right, which is a different license, the performance license. Just some quick examples of reproduction distribution, vinyl and CD, permanent downloads, and streaming. So this diagram highlights sort of where we fit. There's an updated version, so let me just hop out of here really quick to go to our website, because we have a much more clear updated version I want to show instead of that one. And I'm going to post this link in the chat for anyone who wants to open it and save it in your browser. Bookmarks. So this page is called the Digital Music Royalties Landscape. And it basically shows where the MLC fits into the overall United States digital music landscape. We do have a cool video that you can watch in your own time about it, but I'm going to just jump right into the diagram. So as you can see here, there's four different sort of colored boxes. The gray box is representing public performance rights, and the associated royalties are performance royalties. The blue box is reproduction and distribution rights, and the associated royalties are mechanical royalties. The red box is reproduction and distribution rights, and the associated income is called revenue share. And then the digital performance rights are digital performance royalties. So they sit under one of two umbrellas, right? One umbrella is the songs or songs or musical works. And the other umbrella is the sound recording. Those are the two copyrights, right? There's one copyright in a song, there's a separate copyright in a sound recording. Those copyrights have a certain set of rights as a copyright owner. Those rights are granted through licensing tools. On the sound recording side, we use what's called a master license, for example, to license out reproduction distribution rights. But you can see the organizations that sit under these boxes, and this is the important part, right? When thinking about, okay, well, where does MLC fit, and are they taking up space for something else, right? You can see we're the lone guy in this box because we are the exclusive administrator of the blanket mechanical license that was created by the Music Modernization Act. What does that mean? That means that if you are not a member of the MLC, then the royalties associated with this flow will not be paid to you, because there's no other organization that can collect those royalties. Whereas under performance royalties, you have choices. You can be a member of ASCAP, you can be a member of BMI, CSAC, GMR, and so forth. So here you don't really have choice, right? Because it's the law of the land. This is the organization, just like on the Sound Exchange side. For some of you may already be familiar with Sound Exchange. They've been around since the 90s, so it's a little bit more familiar of these guys, but we're sort of like that. Right, Sound Exchange has the exclusive right in the United States to administer Section 112 and 114 of the Copyright Act, whereas the MLC has the exclusive right to administer Section 115 of the Copyright Act. Okay, so you have to be a member of these different organizations in order to collect the royalties associated with these different flows. One thing I want to talk about really quick is how organizations allocate and pay out royalties. Let me look at my screen here. Can you show a hand or use the reaction icon to tell me if you are a member of an ASCAP or a BMI or a CSAC? Okay, so quite a few of you. So you're familiar with the concept of a writer share and a publisher share, right, in terms of paying out royalties. ASCAP pays out 50% to the writer and 50% to the publisher. CSAC pays out 50% to the writer, 50% to the publisher. BMI is the weird guy on the block that has a 100%, has a 200% pie, where they pay out 100% to the publisher, 100% to the writer, but it's still proportionally the same, or 50-50. So that concept does not translate over to mechanical royalties. And that's what I want to point out, right? We don't have a writer share versus a publisher share. It's simply a mechanical shares, 100% pie that is sliced up based on the various claimants of those shares. So you'll see on the diagram where you have payout and a publisher share to music publishers, administrators, and self-administered songwriters from PROs, and payout and a writer share to songwriters. We don't have that. We just have one big, 100% pie. It gets sliced up however you tell us it's sliced up, and then we pay out the mechanical shares based on that slice, not 50%, 50%. It can be 33, 33, 33. It can be 25, 25, 25. It can be all types of splits, but it does not reflect publisher share, writer share type of dynamic. We can pay out self-administered songwriters, music publishers, administrators as well. Okay, so back to my... So I've already given you the background on the Music Modernization Act, but just to recap, the Title I, which is called the Musical Works Modernization Act, created the blanket compulsory mechanical license for interactive streaming, for limited downloads, and for permanent downloads. Well, I do want to highlight what is not included in this type of use: audio video, like YouTube videos or music videos, right? So your music being used in a YouTube video or a music video or a video on Facebook or Instagram is not included in the blanket license, which means we do not collect royalties for that usage. The MLC was mandated the creation of a mechanical license collective, which is us, and our job is to maintain a public database of copyright ownership and rights shares in musical works. So quick, what we do and don't do. The MLC established and maintains a public database of musical works ownership information. All of your songs should be registered with us, and it should be made available in the database. We administer the new blanket license covering mechanical rights. We receive and match sound recording usage reporting data from digital services so that we can pay out mechanical royalties. And then we collect and distribute US digital audio mechanical royalties. What we do not do, we do not administer or pay out performance royalties, such as ASCAP, BMI, CSAC. We do not administer or pay out digital performance royalties and sound recordings, such as sound exchange. We do not pay out mechanical royalties associated with physical products, right? So even though we do mechanical royalties, only for digital streaming and downloads, not for CDs or vinyl, right? So no physical. And also, we do not administer licenses for audiovisual works. Audiovisual works is, obviously, the license type is called synchronization license or sync license. We don't do sync. We do mechanical, interactive, and downloads. And also super important is we only collect for usage in the United States. We do not collect for usage outside the United States. So if you have songs streaming in Spotify UK or Spotify, Brazil, we do not collect those royalties for that usage. The MLC does not replace your PRO, and we do not replace Sound Exchange. Again, we're all like cousins, and you have to be partner up with all of us. Our public search database, you can go to our website, mlc.com, and search our database. I highly recommend you spend some time this weekend, if you have time, to search your name, your IPI number, to see what shows up. If you see songs that you wrote, make sure that they are properly registered. If you're missing some songwriters or if they're missing you, you want to get that taken care of. If you have not yet become a member, then obviously you become a member so you can register songs. But it's also important to check to see if your songs have been registered. If they have been registered, make sure the correct publishers and administrators are on there. Because if it's the wrong one or an old publisher or old administrator, that entity could be receiving your royalties if it's not corrected. So who needs to become a member? The party who administers the publishing for the United States. So if you have a publisher, then your publisher will be the member on your behalf. If you have an administrator like a song trust, then the administrator becomes the member on your behalf. If you're self-administered, then you can become a direct member. This kind of highlights what I just mentioned. If you self-administer any of your songs in the United States, then you can become a member. If you do not self-administer any of your songs in the United States, then you do not need to become a member. Our membership is free. You can enroll on our website by going to mlc.com and clicking on the Connect to Collect button. Again, we pay out 100% of the royalties. You need to register your songs. You can do that in 3 ways. You can log into your portal once you become a member, and you can register online. You can also download a spreadsheet and complete a spreadsheet and upload that spreadsheet with the data. And then the third way is a CWR, but that's mostly for publishers that have thousands and thousands and thousands of songs, millions of songs. Now, inside the portal, once you're a member, we have a tool called the claiming tool. What this does is allows you to search for songs that, search for recordings. This is songs. So search for songs. And if it's missing shares, then you can claim your shares, right? So it basically says, if you knew you wrote the song or you co-wrote the song and it shows up and you don't have any shares, then you can use the claiming tool to go ahead and start the process of claiming your share. We also have a tool called the matching tool. The matching tool highlights sound recordings that have not been matched to a musical work. So for example, every month Spotify sends us a report of all the sound recordings that were streamed on Spotify. We then match those Spotifys to the musical works that have been registered to us, the compositions. When the match happens, we're then able to pay the mechanical royalties that are generated from the sound recording to the publishers and songwriters based on the mechanical shares that have been registered with that song. Now, when we receive a report and we're unable to match a sound recording to a musical work, for whatever reason, it could be the musical work was never registered, for example, then that sound recording is sort of orphaned and it's unmatched. So it shows up in this matching tool. It says basically, hey, this sound recording is earning royalties. This sound recording is generating usage, and that usage is earning mechanical royalties, but we cannot pay out these mechanical royalties because this sound recording is not linked to a musical work where the copyright ownership is is associated. So we need our members to use the matching tool to look at these sound recordings, say, oh, this is my recording, this is mine, and create that link. And that's what your publisher should. So if you have a publisher, this is what your publisher should be doing inside of the MLC, right? Using our claiming tool and using our matching tool on a regular basis to try to identify new versions of a sound recordings. For example, a cover song version or a karaoke version. All these new versions of recordings can show up in the matching tool. Royalty distribution timeline. Now, here's one of the cool things with MLC is we pay out monthly. We don't pay out quarterly. We don't pay out twice a year. We pay out every single month on or before the 15th. So it's really good cash flow. If you're getting a lot of digital streaming, they can become, decent cash flow for studio time or whatever. But we pay out every month. There is a processing period of 75 days. So the usage that is earned in January, for example, is paid out 75 days later in April. The usage that is earned in February is paid out 75 days later in May. The usage earned in March is paid out in June, and so on and so on. So there's a 75-day gap between the usage and the payment, but it's still we pay out monthly, right? So it's still you get some monthly payments for that usage that happened 75 days prior. These payments are direct deposits to any U.S. bank account. And it's 100% of the earned royalties. Again, there's no commission, no administration fee. So we also have what's called historical unmatched royalties. Now, prior to the MLC prior to the blanket license going into effect, which it went into effect on January 1st, 2021. So January 1st, 2021, all digital music usage in the United States was eligible for the blanket license. So all new royalties are called blanket royalties. But prior to that date, through December 2020, December 31st, 2020, all the royalties that were transferred to us by the digital services, you see this list here, Google, Deezer, SoundCloud, they had to transfer to us all the money from their black box and their escrow accounts, right? So for years they operated. They paid out royalties. Some of them did not know, none of them knew all of the copyright owners. So they were required to hold on to their royalties. And they had to transfer all that. So part of the requirement of the MMA was they had to transfer over the royalties. Has anybody heard about that? Do you know how much they transferred to us back in 2021? Anyone have any idea? $425 million.
Wow.
$425 million. They dumped on us with trillions of lines of data at a time where we were all virtual, unable to see each other in person. And we were required by law to build a magnificent software institution that's able to process terabytes and terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of data about individual streams going back to 2007 to then receive 425 million micro pennies. It wasn't like this artist had $100, this artist had $100. It was this stream was 0.0001 cent, and we have all these lines of that. Right, so we had to spend a year building the systems remotely in the cloud to be able to process this information, and I start to identify rights holders. Guess what? We've been able to identify and start paying out almost 85% of the new usage that comes through us since January 1st. The historical usage, the pre-January 1st, we're still in that process. Just last month, finally, the Phonorecords 3 royalty rates was just approved by the Copyright Royalty Board. These royalty rates went back to 2018. So it's been a constant battle between rights holders, major rights holders and DSPs, and digital services on the royalty rates and how they're supposed to get paid and late fees and all that stuff. So our job is to administer, but we're not involved in the litigation that happens between NMPA and Spotify and Apple and so forth. But we're responsible to execute the Copyright Office wishes. So that's where we are now. We've been paying out this historical amount, but it started at 425 million. Now we just got the Copyright Royalty Board just approved, or not approved, but they just confirmed their approval from 2018 that the mechanical royalty rate was supposed to increase and therefore pay out songwriters more. The DSPs fought this the entire 5 years of the term. The term was 2018 to 2022. We're already past that. We're in 2023. They fought that update the entire 5 years, only to get here after the period ended and still lose. And now the Copyright Royalty Board says, now you have to go back to 2018, since we approved this, and adjust every payment you made over the last 5 years to pay out more, to pay out the amount that we originally approved in 2018. So now we as an organization have to receive another data dump from every DSP to recalculate everything we've already paid out for that period, so that we can catch you up. Songwriters and publishers have to be caught up. So I mean, if you didn't hear about it, in 2018, the Copyright Royalty Board passed a 43% increase in the mechanical royalty rate. That increase was not all at once. It was a tiered increase over a 5-year period, 2018, 2019, 2022, 21, 2020, 21, 22. So over a 5-year period, this was kind of the stepping 15.1%, 17%, up to 27%. So they approved this in 2018, and we were super excited. In the music industry, some of you may have heard of that. And then all of a sudden it went silent because the DSPs fought it. They went back to Copyright Royalty Board. They sued. They fought it for 5 years. And after millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars in litigation, they still lost. And the Copyright Royalty Board went back to the original ruling with the original rates from 2018. So the only thing that happened was that songwriters were delayed their due for 5 years. And now we as an organization are required to receive the adjustments that DSPs has to make in their calculations, and now reissue new payments for that period. Plus, we still have our every single day processing billions of lines of data from the current usage, and we're already dealing with the historical usage from 2007 to 2021. So we have 3 different pools of royalties type information coming into us all at once, all simultaneously, that has to be processed all together by a globally remote nonprofit organization that cannot commission your royalties for admin fees. So it's a lot, but we love what we do. So that's MLC. Let's see what else I have here. Yeah, here's our phone number. Like I said, we have a phone number, we have a email form, we have our chat box in the portal. We're available 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. your time, Monday through Friday. And our average, I think we pick up the phone within like 20 seconds. So it's not one of those. When I used to be a publisher, I was a publisher, small publisher. But I remember I used to call my PRO, phone ringing endlessly, you never get a call. You send an email, it takes 2 weeks to get a reply. You reply back to that, it takes 2 more weeks to get a reply to that. We went into this knowing we don't want to have that type of customer service. So, we brought in an outside person from a tech company, from like Lyft, that was used to fast-paced millions of customers at once, that built our customer relations sort of infrastructure. And all of our team has been trained on the mechanical licensing process. So you don't have to wait for a supervisor to answer a question about something on your statement, because everyone on the team has been trained that way. So it's really important to have that, especially as publishers, when you're representing 10, 20, 30 songwriters, and you have questions about your statements and questions about their catalogs and so forth. So we do take pride in our service. That is one of our guiding principles as an organization, is a service. And service stands for everything from me deciding to be on a call at 8 p.m. from Colombia to talk to 15 people in Dallas, to our person in New York who may be called on Friday at 8 p.m. before they go out to the bar. We're going to pick up. We're going to be there.
Well, this is great, Bae. Is this presentation something you could email to me and I could send it
Sure.
out to people who weren't able to make it here tonight?
Absolutely. Send me an email to remind me, because I just got back
Okay.
from vacation yesterday. I'm going through all these emails, but I'll get it to you.
Okay.
Was this presentation on your website? Is that on your website?
This particular presentation and this structure is not on the website. I can send it to any of you, but I can send it to you, Michael, and you can share it. But the information that's in this presentation is on our website. So if you go to our website, which is the mlc.com, we have a ton of information. I recommend do what I do. Sometimes I just get a bottle of wine and just sit down and digest everything.
Well, I like the graphic that you had up.
That graphic is available. So if you go to our website,
just before you put this one up, with all the little boxes of what everything does and how it's distributed, right there. That is a great little graphic to look at.
That's in the chat. That's in the chat. I put it in the chat, so you can click on that.
Link. Okay, yeah.
You can click on that one. Also, I highly recommend check out our YouTube channel. We have a ton of videos that I don't have time to show you, but if you go to our YouTube channel,
you're a music creator.
In addition to that, I mean, we just have a ton of videos, 4 ways to get paid. We talk about a lot of different things here. So you can learn a lot just from our YouTube videos. We have a whole section for independent songwriters. We have tons of webinars. We have information on how to register songs and how those song registrations turn into royalties. So we do have a lot of information on our YouTube channel that you can check out. And then you definitely become a member, so you can view how to become a member, how to use our tools. Lindsay here is our head of customer experience, so she does a lot of videos on basically how to use our portal, how to register songs, how to review your statements, how to download statements, and so forth. So you definitely check out our YouTube channel, and then our website itself has a lot of information on the resources page and the fact page.
I have a question. Okay, so
here's the public search too, by the way.
Was a little bit confusing to me is like a stream from Spotify. What part of that does Sound Exchange collect, and what part of that does MLC collect on that stream?
So that is a great question. Let me do a visual along with this conversation here, because I'm a visual kind of learner and educator. Let's get back to the MLC. Because
I always thought that mechanicals were downloads and weren't streams. I always thought that streams were
totally,
but I think now it's more than that. It's different, right?
Let me clarify for you. So before you dive into this diagram, which again, you definitely should study this diagram, because this diagram is the landscape for the United States in terms of how digital licensing happens. Now, there are some exceptions to this. Those exceptions are in the form of direct licenses, right? So, for example, if I'm a publisher and I directly license Spotify, we can negotiate whatever rates we want. If I'm a publisher and I directly license YouTube Music, then we can negotiate whatever rates we want. Everything else that's not direct licenses fall into this diagram on your screen.
Yes.
So at the top, study the legend. The legend talks about, here are the types of usage.
Now we can see it.
Right. So the legend here, we have interactive streams and limited downloads. So the color circles represent which royalty types are associated with this type of usage. Interactive stream means you can interact with it, meaning you can push play, you can push pause, you can skip backwards, you can fast forward. That's interactive. That's Spotify, right? So on Spotify, you can choose a particular track, you can pause it, you can skip, you can do all that. That's interactive. A limited download is a download to your device that is only accessible via internet. So like back in the my college days, we had like MP3 players, iPods, and some type of different type of tools that had, you know, limited use when you download it. So that all limited use, whether it's internet limited or it's limited based on digital rights management, DRM. That's what limited downloads are. Permanent downloads means you purchase it. So that's like iTunes, right? The iTunes store where you purchase a download. Now you have that download on your device. That's a permanent download. Now you see it's missing one, right? It's only 2 and 3. And then a non-interactive stream, meaning you cannot interact with the stream. You cannot press play or pause. I'm sorry, you cannot like fast forward it or rewind it. That's radio. That's like a radio experience, like Pandora or Slacker Radio or iHeartRadio, right? You can choose the channel. You can choose a themed channel, like, you know, 50s golden era or whatever, or you can, you know, this rock, 70 rock or 80 metal. Like you can choose a theme, but you can't choose a specific song.
That's called like Sirius XM be included?
Correct, exactly. Sirius XM, Music Choice channel on cable, if you watch that, which has music, well, it doesn't have music video, it has audio only. Sirius XM in your vehicle or at home. Websites like iHeartRadio and Pandora, those are non-interactive streamings, and you see that it's missing 2 and 3. These are the royalties associated with this type of use. So then you go back into here and you look at, okay, well, what's number 1? Well, 1 is only for interactive streams and non-interactive streams. It's not for permanent downloads. What is 1? Low performance royalties. Guess what? And then you already know this probably. You do not receive a performance royalty when you download a song from iTunes, right? There's no performance there in that use type. So there's no performance royalty associated with downloads. But you do have a mechanical royalty associated with permanent downloads. Every download itself is a reproduction and a distribution. So therefore, it receives a mechanical royalty, but it's not a performance. Interactive streaming, like Spotify, like YouTube Music, Google Play Music, you see they have both performance and mechanical, right? So you asked the question about Spotify. Well, if I am on Spotify and I play a song right now, it's generating a performance royalty for the performance of that song over the internet, and it's generating a mechanical royalty for the reproduction of the audio file to create that performance. So it's creating 2 royalties simultaneously. And in order to collect both, and that's what that video said earlier, as a songwriter, you have to be able to collect both the performance royalty and mechanical royalty. You have to be a member of the organizations associated with those royalties.
Yeah.
Now, you see there's a third here, that's red. So for interactive streaming like Spotify, you also have the master sound recording, you know, and that also earns revenue. That revenue is paid to the record labels or a self-releasing artist through like a CD Baby or a TuneCore, right? So that's on the master side or the sound recording side. But on the musical work side, that's the publishing side, right? That's the songwriters and publishers, whereas this is for the artists and sound recorders. If you wrote the song, if you recorded the song, if you released the song, then guess what? You have all 3 buckets, and you have to be a member, or you'll have some here. You have to have a distributor in order to collect all 3 of those royalty types. Now, this orange one is where you mentioned Sound Exchange. Sound Exchange has nothing to do with interactive streams. Therefore, it has nothing to do with SoundCloud. I'm sorry, with Spotify or SoundCloud. It's only for non-interactive streams like the Sirius XM and Pandora, right? So non-interactive streams like the Sirius XM, Pandora, iHeartRadio, they have a performance royalty for the musical work, but there's no mechanical royalty because there's no download, right? And then there's a sound recording digital performance right on the master side. This goes back to what I was saying earlier about the allocation for music producers, right? So you see Sound Exchange, whereas ASCAP and BMI pays out the publisher share and the writer share, Sound Exchange pays out a label share and a featured artist share. Right? Label share is 50%, featured artist share is 45%.
Which is something that terrestrial radio never had to pay.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the 5% that's left over, This is for non-featured artist share. That 5% goes to the AFM and SAG-AFTRA Intellectual Property Right Distribution Fund. This is for session musicians and background vocalists. Now, if you are a producer or engineer, you get paid out of the featured artist share, and you have to have your letter of direction. And this is, again, that goes back to the EMP Act, the Allocation for Music Producers Act. Now, this is different. Now, if you are a music producer and you use instrumentation in your production, well, you are considered a music producer and therefore eligible for the EMP entitlement, right? The Allocation for Music Producer Act entitlement, which flows from the featured artist share. And you're considered a session musician because you use instrumentation in your production. As a session musician, you're also entitled to the non-featured artist share through the AFM and SAG-AFTRA. So that's two different organizations for two different types of royalties associated with that one work. Like, so I always tell my colleagues or my clients who are music producers, like, honestly, I don't care if you just push one keyboard throughout the whole song, do something to unlock that additional royalty type. Because when you become a session musician and you are the producer, those are two different entitlements, and you can get them by simply having that contribution to the work. Even if you're a music producer and you just hum oohs and ahs in the chorus and the hook, do that. That makes you a background vocalist. As a background vocalist, you open up an entitlement for background vocalists non-featured performer share. What happens when those royalties are not collected by session musicians, background vocalists? You think they get paid to the artist? They do not. They're allocated, which means it's entitled, which means it does not roll over. What happens is the work itself earns the royalties, but no one receives it. I spent a lot of time during the pandemic helping music creators unlock that royalty type, because people obviously were making money from touring. You needed more money. I was able to help them go and register their contribution as a background vocalist, register their contribution as a session musician to unlock this new income. And I was able to get checks for $15,000 for back royalties that were never paid out for years. So if you were a session musician on a work, it has nothing to do with if you're with the union. You don't need to be a part of AFM to qualify. It doesn't need to be an AFM signatory recording studio to qualify. It could have been someone's garage, someone's bedroom. And as long as that work, or as long as your contribution was considered as a session musician, meaning you played an instrument in that. And by the way, the instrument could be digital. So synth instrumentation too. So electronic music where it's all synth, guess what? That qualifies. Right? So it doesn't have to be a piece of hardware. It doesn't have to be an actual guitar. It can be guitar sounds. It can be piano sounds. It can be whatever. So those things do qualify. But a lot of times creators, simply don't know and don't register that contribution. And without registering that contribution, you simply don't make the money. I'm going to show you the website here. So this is called the AFM and SAG-AFTRA Fund. If you go to afmsagaftrafund.org, this is the fund's website. They've been around for 25 years. Now, how many of you have heard of them in 25 years? 1, 2. 25 years they've been around. They've been to 3 presidents since I've known them. I've known both Stephanie, the current president, and a previous president. We did some work together. And they sit on millions of dollars owed to session musicians and background vocalists of independent and major release works. And what happens is they have an unclaimed recordings portal. Now, it used to be where they just listed everything, but now you have to search. So let's just say my name is David. You can search for your name and see if your name shows up. And if it does, you can start the process of claiming, any royalties that have accrued for this creator. Now, where does this come from? This information comes from liner notes. Now, we don't have liner notes that much anymore because everything's digital, but the credits associated with the work has to be published somewhere, whether it's in Music Brains or Discogs or Jacksta or any of these websites. The credits associated with the work needs to be published. When those credits are published, AFM SAG-AFTRA uses that to qualify that session musician or background vocalist as a session musician or background vocalist because there's published credits. If you're working on music without credits that are not being published, then it's hard to go back and say, oh, I did that. So you can, it's not impossible, but you have to have something to show that here are all the contributors. So yeah, these credits have to be published, and that makes you available for these royalties. And again, like the chart shows, I left the chart.
Well, Dae, this is a lot of great information. We're going to have to probably absorb it on our own, as we can.
I'll drop the SAG-AFTRA fund in your check. I have to hop off as well, but we kind of went off a little. I can spend 4 hours doing this, but
I need to make a comment here. We're recording this whole presentation. It will be on YouTube, on our Dallas Songwriters YouTube.
Yes, this would be a great help to our members who couldn't be with us tonight. And if you'll send me, I'll remind you. I'll send you an email so you can send me the presentation, and I'll forward that on, and then we can start, going to your website and learning more. But this has been fantastic.
I just want to spend just a few minutes, not too long, addressing the question in the chat because I love demonstrating our portal live. So, Michael, what song did you search here? Oh, you said a guy named Fletch just searched for 2 songs.
So yeah, the song was For a Song, but it said there were 2 matches. The other song has a different title, and the only.
So he went here and he put in the work title For a Song. And did you put in your name?
I didn't. I put in. Actually, I did a search on my name, my legal name, and I came up with about 50 records. And
okay, so this is you.
Yeah.
Just For a Song.
Mm-hmm.
So the good news is we know 100% of the shares, right? So if this was less than 100%, that means we're not able to pay out the full shares. I mentioned earlier, remember, we pay out by shares. So 100% of the shares are known here, and here are the 2 writers. And we see that CD Baby's your administrators, and they're going ahead and collecting 50% for each writer. And here are the matched recordings. There's 2 matched recordings. There may be more recordings. There certainly are more recordings, but they're not matched here yet, which means they have to be matched by CD Baby manually inside of our matching tool. But they're not, they're not all matched. But what this means is this song is matched. This recording is matched to this musical work, and therefore all of the royalties that are being created by the streams are being paid out 100% to the shares as known. That's what this means, which is great because a lot of times we don't have that. So let me go back and show you an example where we don't have that.
All right. Well, the question is this, because I checked out that song, and there's no musical or lyrical commonality with my song. There is a Michael Roth that's one of the songwriters on that other song. There's a bunch of Michael Roths, but I just wondered why it says there's 2.
This song is artist Fletcher is not related to this musical work, is what you're saying,
right?
Right. So this is a mismatch.
Right.
So that's what it is. It's a mismatch. There's different reasons why that could happen, but it's clearly a mismatch, and that needs to be fixed. So number what a member would do is see that mismatch and notify the MLC internally. In this case, you're not the member. CD Baby is the member on your behalf. So that's a mismatch, and that could happen just automatically. We have billions of matches. Millions of matches a month. There's bound to be some mismatches in the low percentage of issues. But this is a mismatch here.
Yeah, I believe I am a member though.
You are a member. Okay.
Yeah.
If you are a member, then you can go ahead and contact member support with this URL. Every work has its own unique URL, so you can just take that one right there, and just send it to them, and then they'll go straight to it, just like this.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
one quick general question keeps running through my mind. What is the mechanical license royalty rate? You keep talking about the royalty rate. What is it?
Yeah, so there is no set royalty rate. The royalties are a formula. Therefore, the effective rate changes every month, and it's based on a lot of factors. But there's no specific royalty rate. There's a minimum royalty rate, and that's what the Copyright Royalty Board established. A minimum. It used to be 15.1. It was 15.1%, and it went up to 22% over the 5 years. Right, so a minimum of 22%, or this crazy formula, and ultimately it's the greater than. So it's the greater than
22% of what?
Of this services revenue.
Of the services, and who knows what that is? I guess is that.
Have to well, we know because they have to report it.
That's a floating number.
But, yes, it changes every month, right? And it's so there's not a set royalty rate. When you look at your royalty statements, you'll see, for example, Apple Music's effective royalty rate is going to be different than Spotify's because it's a formula based on their revenue.
Well, I mean, I've heard stories, about somebody getting 1 million downloads and getting $50.
Well, those are true stories.
Yeah.
So, but they're not downloads because they'll be 1 million times 99 cents. But that would be great these days to get 1 million downloads. The challenge is getting 1 million streams.
Yeah.
1 million downloads is great.
Yeah. Okay.
1 million streams, and that's when you hear about the 0.00. Audio visual is the worst offender, right? Because it's an ad share situation, and so the effective rate, that's what you've seen before, like 0.0006 for like a YouTube video. It's higher for digital services like a Deezer and Apple Music. But when people talk about a royalty rate and they say, oh, you get, points, or 23 cents or whatever, or 0.23 cents. There's two questions to ask is, are you talking about the master or the publishing? Because the master is more, publishing is less. That's the first thing, is that, and the master side, there is no statutory rate. It's negotiated between the copyright owner and the DSP. Whereas the publishing side is a statutory rate, which is set by the Copyright Royalty Board. And the rate is not a fixed rate, but rather a formula, a greater than formula. So when people reference how much they made from Spotify, that conversation is not helpful unless you know they're talking about a master or sound or a musical work. Yeah. And then that's still not really helpful because the rate, it depends on the month, and it depends on the type of service offering, like was it a bundle, was it a family plan, was it all that stuff comes into that.
So it's not readily obvious as to what
It's not really obvious, but we do have information on our website. So if you go to mlc.com and click on how it works, and go to blanket royalties.
Well, good. Does anybody else have any other important questions?
Thank you so much, Dae.
I have to say you're pretty awesome people.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks so much.
I don't know how you're living if you're working for nonprofit, but yay for you for all that work.
Well, our expenses are paid by the DSPs. That's the law. So the DSPs are required to pay the expenses, the overhead of the MLC. So everything from our light bill to our building, lease, they're required to pay it by law. So that means we're able to shift all of our expenses to DSPs instead of to our members, which means we can pay our members 50% of the royalties.
Well, good. I'm glad you can eat. I mean, that's good.
Dae, the next thing we've got going on is we have 5 songs that have been submitted by members tonight who we're going to listen to and give a critique. I don't know if you want to stick around, participate in that, or
I have to hop off, guys. Sorry, I'm just got back from vacation yesterday. We got to catch up with a lot of work. But
Okay.
It's been a pleasure to introduce you to the MLC. If you're not a member yet, feel free to go to our website. You can chat with anyone and learn more about signing up. You just provide your bank information so we can pay your direct deposits and ID and start registering your songs. But I do recommend you do what Michael did and go to our website and type in your name, just exactly what Michael did, to see how his songs show up. Type in your name, see how your songs show up. If your songs don't show up, that means you need to become a member and register your songs. Even if you have a publisher, you want to double check your publisher's work by checking for your name and see if their songs are registered. If it's not registered, you go to your publisher and say, hey, I don't see my song in the database. It needs to be registered.
Well, this has been fantastic. You've been a wealth of information. We learned a lot tonight. That's for sure.
Hey guys, take care. I'll be in Dallas.
Thank you so much.
I'll be in Dallas once it cools down.
I don't blame you.
All right.
All right.
Some burgers and some barbecue.
Good night. That was very good.
Right.
Learn something new every day.
A whole lot of something new.